It's to the gentlelady from California, Ms. Pelosi.
The gentlelady is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I thank the gentleman for yielding, and thank you for your leadership on this important committee and for giving us, all of us, the opportunity to express our support for the District of Columbia. I come to the floor with great pride on this, and as Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton knows, I take pride in the fact that my father, when he was a member of Congress many, many years ago from Baltimore, was the chair of the Appropriations Subcommittee on the District of Columbia. He was a big supporter of home rule, which didn't exist at that time. And then, of course, we saw home rule, and we saw a mayor, and we see the District of Columbia. Now our aspiration is for statehood, has always been, but continues to be. So when we hear this debate on the floor, it's what are we talking about here? Is this become the city council of the District of Columbia that we're debating issues? That's up to the District of Columbia. What we do is respect their ability to make their own rules, whether we like them or not. So the point is that this is a sort of a gotcha kind of an amendment that I think is most unfortunate, unworthy of the debate on statehood and representation for people in the District of Columbia who fight our wars, pay our taxes, contribute to the greatness of our country, but do not have representation in the Congress of the United States and fall victim to any criticism of their individual legislation. So I urge a no vote on this and yield back.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 2 minutes to the gentlewoman from California, Ms. Pelosi, Speaker Emerita of the House.
The gentlelady is recognized. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the gentleman for yielding. I thank him, Mr. Boyle, and Mr. Richie Neal for their leadership in bringing our side of the story to this. And what is that? I thank the Republicans for the clarity with which they have put forth their Default on America Act, because their Default on American Act will do just this. When you vote for this bill, you will vote to put veterans' health care at risk, eliminating up to 30 million health care visits for our veterans, slash Pell Grants for tens of thousands of students, rip away food assistance for women, infant, and children, 1 million of them, 1 million seniors off of Meals on Wheels. When you vote for this, you will vote to pollute the planet by overturning what we did to save the planet with green tax credits in the Inflation Reduction Act. You will, what is amazing, a vote to cut $8 billion in law enforcement from state, local, and federal law enforcement, pulling cops off the street, and lead to up to 700,000 fewer jobs to be created. Certainly we negotiate over the appropriations bills. I'm an appropriator, and for 20 years I've been in 19 engagements of the debt ceiling kind. Whether we lift the debt ceiling is a question of whether we honor the Constitution that says that our full faith and credit of America shall not be in doubt. When you use that as a wedge, as President Trump admonished you not to, you are placing in doubt our credit rating and what that means to American people on their credit cards, bills, and at the kitchen table. You are playing with fire. We've been down this road before. When the former president was president, 3 times we lifted the debt ceiling, never placing in doubt the full faith and credit of the United States of America. I urge a no vote and yield back the balance of my time. When we had the impeachment of President Trump, it followed the phone call and all the rest of that the whistleblower revealed, and then I had a conversation with him, and so we moved forward collecting information to be prepared to bring a bill to the floor. He's saying, well, Nancy didn't bring a bill to the floor. No, we did. We had a few weeks where we had to make our case, and I had assigned 6 committee chairs to get the information and the rest, and that then prepared us to bring the bill to the floor. They've had, 9 months of collecting information. They have nothing.
Look, even among very loyal Democrats, there's a lot of concerns about the president. Is he the best candidate to defeat Donald Trump, the best candidate to defeat any of the Republicans who are running right now?
I think so. Yes. President Biden has he has great experience and wisdom. He's been at this for a long time, as you know, as a senator, vice president, and now president. He has a vision for our country that's about fairness and justice and addressing the kitchen table issues of America's working families. He has that vision. He knows why he wants to be president and is president. While there may be some concerns, everybody's for him. Overwhelmingly, everybody's for him.
Speaker Emerita from the marvelous state of California, such time as she may consume, are inspiring Madam Pelosi, Speaker Emerita.
Thank you very much. I thank the gentlewoman for yielding. I thank her for her leadership on this important issue and for giving us all the opportunity to speak on it, on the rule that would bring this shameful legislation to the floor. Mr. Speaker, I strongly oppose of this Republican's latest assault on the health and safety of our children. Every child deserves clean air to breathe. We in California believe this is our sacred duty. That is why our state has taken strong action to reduce vehicle pollution, preserve our environment, and protect our children. So I just have one question for our allies across, our colleagues across the aisle. Why? Why don't you want children to have cleaner air to breathe? Why don't you understand what this means to their health? Why do you not understand the connection between pollution and asthma and how unfair that is to children in our population? That's why more than 5 decades ago, this Congress acted to preserve California's authority to protect our children and has repeatedly reauthorized that since. Despite this precedent, this bill would restrict the ability of states like California to protect families from dangerous pollution. Now, it's important for people to understand that, as the gentlelady pointed out, this is at the discretion of the states. 17 states have decided that they would use such a waiver in order to protect the children and the air that they breathe. So why would you want to throw the American auto industry into disarray, diminishing leadership and electric vehicle future? You know, Mr. Speaker, as the gentlelady referenced, it's an economic decision that our industry makes. We have in this body, in the Democratic majority, come to the aid of the auto industry, not corporations, but the industry and the workers. And we want our auto industry to be preeminent in the world. California is a very big market for the auto industry. For 50 years, they have lived with this emissions standard, this waiver that enables that to happen. If you're making cars for California, it's easier then to make the same safe cars for the rest of the country because it's a big market in California. And 16 other states have followed suit, representing at least 40% of new auto purchases in our country, a big chunk of our auto industry economy. So again, what would be the reason that you would interfere into the free market of the auto industry, into the free breathing of our children of cleaner air? The only explanation could be that big oil opposes this legislation. They're so living in the past, they don't even realize it, that the future is upon us, and the future is for the children. With that, I urge a no on this rule and yield back the balance of my time.
Reserve.
Ladies recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the gentlewoman for yielding, and for her leadership on this issue. I want to commend the chair and ranking member of the Armed Services Committee for the legislation that came out of their committee, 58-1, the bipartisanship to protect and defend, which is the oath of office that we take, all of us, to serve in government. And also, though, to acknowledge that on the floor of this House, these poisonous resolutions came forward and were added to the bill, and I rise to move to instruct House conferees to honor our men and women in uniform by protecting their fundamental health freedom. I was listening with interest and prayerfully, frankly, to the previous speaker who decided that terminating a pregnancy is not a health issue. Well, for some people, it might be. Do you believe in the Hyde Amendment? I'm not a fan of the Hyde Amendment, but that is the law of the land. And under the Hyde Amendment, if there's rape, incest, or the life of the mother is at risk, then that changes the dynamic in terms of public policy. Now, suppose a family member has life of the mother at risk, or a child of a service member is a victim of violence and rape in the community. Would you want that person to have their health needs met? If they're in a state that says absolutely not, then their health needs, then they would have to travel elsewhere, in keeping with the Hyde Amendment. So if you believe in the Hyde Amendment, which I don't subscribe to, but you do, many of you do, if you believe in that, how can you deprive the life of a mother, whether it's a servicewoman herself or the spouse of a service person or a child of a service member, the ability to seek the health that they need? The NDA has long been bipartisan. This year, House Republicans are now engaging in a version that would restrict service members receiving full reproductive rights. This is disrespectful. Shame on those who play political games with the courageous people who would give their lives to save ours. With that, I thank you for the time and yield back.
The gentleman.
Mr. Speaker, I'm proud to yield 2 minutes to the Speaker Emerita, the gentlewoman from the great state of California, the Honorable Nancy Pelosi.
The gentlewoman from California is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the gentleman for yielding, and I rise in strong support of this resolution to support one of the closest allies in the world and partners, Israel, as she defends herself against terrorist attacks. I thank Chairman McCall for his leadership in bringing this to the floor, as well as Ranking Member Meeks for their leadership, working together, crafting this resounding statement of support and doing so in a unifying bipartisan way. Mr. Speaker, on October 7th, we watched in horror as Hamas terrorists unleashed a brutal assault on Israel's families and slaughtered. We've gone into some of the detail of the brutality of it all, outside the circle of civilized human behavior. Brutality. The attacks were horrible. With this resolution, the United States Congress resoundingly declares our support for Israel, not with revenge, but with justice, that justice will be done. And when doing so, we continue to remain concerned about the humanitarian situation in Gaza with civilians caught in the middle of the war. I echo Secretary Blinken's call for a humanitarian pause so that innocent lives can be saved. 80 years ago, Mr. Speaker, on the floor of this House, my father, as a member of Congress, Thomas D'Alessandro from Maryland, called upon the Roosevelt administration to support the establishment of a state of Israel in what was known as Palestine at the time. He was early in calling for that. So it's in my DNA to protect that state of Israel. Hamas is dedicated to the destruction of the state of Israel. Hamas has been declared a terrorist organization by the United States. Hamas must be destroyed. But in destroying them, we must protect the children in Gaza. They use them as shields. We want to protect them. So this resolution, in overwhelming bipartisan support on the floor of the House, is so necessary. I urge a unanimous vote and thank the Chairman and Ranking Member for their leadership.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute.
Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today on World AIDS Day as we remember tens of millions of beautiful souls we have lost around the world to HIV and AIDS and pray for their families. Over the last 2 decades, our fight against HIV/AIDS in the world has been transformed by PEPFAR, made possible by the leadership of President Bush and bipartisan support in Congress. It was my privilege to be a leader in this fight on the Foreign Operations Subcommittee, where we secured more than $100 billion for PEPFAR to support its life-giving work. I want to salute President Bush and Mrs. Bush for their ongoing attention and commitment to this issue. I have traveled to visit the clinics in Africa and have been told by people there PEPFAR gave them hope. They would never have been tested if they didn't think there was an opportunity for something to improve their lives. So they lost the stigma of being tested positively by having hope given to them. Thank you, President Bush and Mrs. Bush, for helping address the issue with your Pink Ribbon campaign. As we go forward, let us hope that this body will soon reauthorize PEPFAR for what it means. During the COVID crisis, I spoke to the head of the World Health Organization, asked him, did PEPFAR help? He said, yes, the science, the distribution of drugs, the network that was created was all very helpful to us in the fight against COVID, especially in Africa. So again, thanks to President Bush for his leadership at the time. I said at the time, I'm with you as long as it's big. He made it big and he's made it constant, and we salute him and are grateful to him for that. With that, I yield back the balance of my time.
My great privilege to yield to the Speaker Emerita of the United States House of Representatives, Speaker Nancy Pelosi of California.
Thank you very much. I thank the gentlewoman for yielding and for her tremendous leadership over a long period of time with as a great intellectual resource to helping Ukraine. Thank you very much for your leadership, Marcy Kaptur. Nearly 1 year ago, many of you will recall, in this chamber, we had a joint session of Congress. We were honored by the presence of President Zelensky, who came directly from the battlefield, brought us a flag signed by the soldiers, and delivered a magnificent speech. President Zelensky made clear the necessity of American support by saying, your money is not charity, it is investment in the global security and in democracy. And the fight of the Ukrainian people for democracy is just remarkable to behold. But their fight is for their democracy and ours as well. Indeed, powered by the investment we made last Congress, passed by an overwhelming bicameral vote, Ukraine has battled historically against the tide of the biggest army in Europe, the Russian army. It is important for the American people to know that Ukraine has reclaimed, won back, 50% of the land previously seized by the Russians. Won back 50%. More than 60%, close to 2/3 of the money that we have invested in military assistance for the Ukrainians has been spent in the United States. Has been spent in the United States creating jobs here as we support the Ukrainians. And that's 50% of the land, nearly 2/3 of the money and spent here, and 100% of the determination that victory will belong to the Ukrainian people. Others have mentioned, Mr. Hoyer included, at the same time our hearts break when we hear about the atrocities committed against women by Putin's forces. Women are subjected to rape as a weapon of war, murdered in front of their parents or in front of their children, raped in the same way. Tens of thousands of children kidnapped by the Russian soldiers, tens of thousands. I said to someone who knows about these things, isn't it sad, the brutality of war that has turned these soldiers into brutes? And they said, make no mistake, the Russian soldiers do what they are ordered to do. These rapes, these kidnappings, these murders of families in front of family members are the direct order of Vladimir Putin, a very evil person. And we must put an end to this unadulterated evil. The longer we wait to get the money, more people will die, more children will be kidnapped, more women will be raped, and more uncertainty will be injected into the situation as to whether we are there to protect democracy and to support it. As the war wages on, administration has repeatedly made clear America is at the end of the supply of money we have voted, and Ukraine is nearly out of time. Today, President Zelensky returned to the Capitol to make a compelling case for America's continued support to help Ukraine finish the fight. Because the battle for Ukraine, again, is a battle for democracy itself, and we will not let death, destruction, and dictatorship of Vladimir Putin prevail. President Biden's fundamental supplemental funding request must be brought to the floor as soon as possible so that we honor our duty to stand with the Ukrainian people until victory is won. And it has been said on both sides of the aisle, the cost of war is great. Should Putin prevail and then go on to other invasions of NATO or non-NATO countries, it'll only cost more money, more lives, more families separated. That cannot be what we are about. At the same time, this legislation calls for us to honor a commitment to peace in the Middle East by our support for Israel and the humanitarian assistance that is in the legislation for the Palestinian people, as well as others. With that, again, I thank you for your leadership, for taking the special order, for yielding time, and yield back mine. Thank you.
I thank the gentlelady and thank